Have you just been diagnosed with endometriosis or PCOS? Maybe it took you years to finally figure out that this is the condition that you have, and you feel like birth control is the only way out. If this is you, then you will highly resonate with this video. I'm here to tell you that there is a way to reverse your PCOS, and there is a way to put your endometriosis symptoms under control. I had the opportunity and the privilege to sit down with Meghan Maloof Berdellans, also known as Meghan Connolly on Instagram. She talks all about ancestral living. This is the way that she was able to reverse her PCOS in 4 months and also treat her endometriosis symptoms. She's an advocate for endometriosis, helping women find their voice and understand that there is a way to treat these symptoms. She's also all about living the glam lifestyle while being healthy. You can do both at the same time. In her professional career, Meghan is a real estate broker currently based in Miami. Grab a snack and enjoy this conversation where we dive into the world of ancestral living, using food as medicine, and reversing these common endocrine disorders that we're told have no cure. Hi ladies, and welcome to today's episode. I'm joined by Meghan Maloof Berdellans. She goes by Meghan Connolly on Instagram. I'm super excited to get to know her a little bit more. Meghan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Natalie, for having me. I'm so excited to be here today. So, Megan, whatever you want to call me, I don't have a preference. I'm born and raised in New York, but I currently live in Miami with my husband. And I've been in South Florida for about 7 years now, going on 8 almost, but I've been coming here for about 11 years. And it's been really, really fascinating. So when I was in New York, I got my start, working in social media consulting and branding, even so much so that my dog has developed a large following. She's an influencer. She's modeled in New York Fashion Week. I've worked on really fun viral projects up there. And then when it came down to South Florida, my real estate experience was, to be very candid, a little subpar. So when I came down, I decided to get my license, thought it was going to be a very part-time thing. And now I'm a broker and a compliance officer for a whole office. And, that is a chunk of my day, but I still am very much active in the social media consulting and branding realm as well. I've actually kind of in the last couple of years through my own health journey have pivoted to developing an audience on my own personal platform too, just, based on health advocacy, which I'm sure we will get into today, since that is a big part of, one of the reasons why we're here. So for me, like, I love what I do with real estate, but I also really love what I do in the social media realm, just because I have such a passion for it, where connecting and meeting new people online is so fascinating to me. And fun fact, I actually met my husband on Twitter almost 11 years ago. So people say there's a lot of bad on social media, but there's also a lot of good. And you and I are here today together and friends because of social media too. So I'm really, really grateful about it.
Yes, no, I'm super grateful too. Social media has its ups and downs, but
Mhm.
I have so many pros with social.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. So, okay, you were mentioning health advocacy and, your diet and your lifestyle.
Mhm.
When was there a specific moment in your life that you noticed that something was off, something was wrong, and it kind of made you want to explore that?
Yes. So I'm going to just take you back in time to 2004, 2005. Actually, when I first got my period for the first time, my experience with my cycles were horrendous. But my mother's cycles were also horrendous. So that's what I thought was normal until going to school, where I was having accidents and I needed to leave school and my other friends weren't, and I started talking to them about it. So I knew something was off. Um, so fast forward about 10 years later, 7 OBGYNs later, multiple other specialists, I ended up getting diagnosed with endometriosis, and my endometriosis was very severe. So, and I know I'm taking this through a very quick journey, but it was really, my symptoms were, and I can get into them, extremely painful periods, bloating, heavy bleeding, just painful urination, like anything that you can imagine, like bowel issues, awful. Just, it was so bad. And it was developing to be not just when I had my menstrual cycle, but 24/7. Um, Actually, believe it or not, when I was in college, it got really bad. I was 21 years old. I was a senior, and I was in an attendance mandatory class where I was a very dedicated student. I got up in the middle of class and I said, I have to leave. And so I left. And my professor, who knew I was a good student and really cared about my work, called me and said, hey, that was out of character. Are you okay? And I actually had to open up to him and explain to him, like, about my cycle. So I thought I had tried everything under the sun. I am a former vegan because I thought that that was actually going to help my symptoms, was by going vegan. Also, it was part of it was because of my symptoms, but the other part of it was my my endo was so severe at the time that anything I ate made my stomach just bloat like crazy. And it wasn't just a regular bloating, it was a very painful bloating. So I was very particular about the foods that I consumed, but I was also very and I look back on it now where I wasn't I was a little misinformed. So I wasn't eating organic, but I was eating vegan. I was definitely consuming inflammatory oils and, these meat replacement foods and whatnot, but I just didn't know, right? And so as years went by, 23 years old, I got diagnosed with endometriosis through laparoscopic surgery. I had an excision surgery, which that really concluded the extensiveness of my case. I had hundreds of lesions in my pelvic cavity, pelvic wall, uterus, fallopian tubes, ovaries, bladder, rectum, colon. It was going for my liver. And I was a new person after my surgery. Like after my surgery recovery, I couldn't believe how different I felt and how much the disease was weighing me down. But at the same time, like because of that, and when I had recovered, I wanted to start introducing foods back into my diet to see, like, okay, like what did the endo affect that I couldn't digest that now I might be able to. So I started going down the rabbit hole. I started Greek yogurt. I tried fish again. I tried chicken. I tried a few different things. Some of them I could now tolerate, which I was blown away by, but others I couldn't, such as pasteurized regular milk. So, because I now was basically feeling much better, I got used to feeling really good again, that I started feeding my body a little bit of junk. I was drinking, not extensively, but just, more than I should have been on the weekends and so forth. And fast forward from 23 years old to around 29, 30 years old, I noticed that my cycles were actually starting to get bad again. And when I noticed that too, it was not just I'm starting to experience pain again and some irregularity, but I'm also noticing that I don't have a fertile window. Now I'm married and, I'm open to life and I'm charting my cycles, but I found that my fertile window was very short. And I just, I was starting to get concerned by that, especially too, because of the pain. So I went, back to the OBGYN requesting certain tests, where they said that they noticed a string of pearl appearance on my ovaries, highly suggestive of PCOS. And then they ran some blood work. I was experiencing cystic acne. I was experiencing, like I mentioned before, infertility, delayed ovulation, and then my fertile window was only 3 days, if that, which made me reevaluate diet once again. So I know this is a very long-winded answer, but it really is a journey that I went on, because I was like, I was one extreme. And then once I got this, they did diagnose me with PCOS. They gave me a whole dietary guide, which if you saw it, you would laugh. But it made me pray and evaluate, okay, like what am I feeding my body? What am I doing? And clearly I'm not, there's some things that I can improve. And mainly what I learned was I was consuming an excessive amount, not knowingly, excessive amount of inflammatory seed oils. They were in everything. My
Wow.
hummus, my chips, my crackers, my oat milk. Like I was obsessed with oat milk, like literally addicted. And I had heard about the oils, but I was like, oh, if I'm just having it in moderation, it's fine. But I didn't realize that it was coming at me from all angles. Not just I decided to not cook with it anymore, but it's in literally everything in my pantry and my fridge.
Wow.
And so I started to pray, and I spoke with well, I didn't speak with her, but I spoke with God, and God basically told me, he was like, hey, like, look at your grandmother. And my grandmother she lived until her mid 90s, and she basically, like, she prioritized high quality meats. She drank regular real raw milk. She you know, everything was super clean, and she had 8 children, 8 healthy children. And I looked at her diet, and the way that she was eating was the exact opposite of the way I was. So I was like, you know what, God, I'm going to give this a try. I'm really disciplined when I make decisions. And within 4 months, the PCOS was completely reversed. Cystic acne gone, from being insulin resistant to actually insulin sensitive, that the doctor was like, what did you do? This is like insane.
Wow.
And the string of pearl appearance was gone. Now, I did have some challenges still that I, took some time to address. Now, this is almost 2 years ago now. So I have been doing I've been healing. But in addition to that string of pearl and PCOS diagnosis, they did notice, because you can't diagnose endometriosis on ultrasound, sonogram, or MRI. The only way to clinically diagnose it and find out if it's there again is to actually go in through the belly button laparoscopically. But they can do an MRI, a pelvic MRI, and if they see inflammation, they could say it's suggestive of endo. And when I was going through this whole journey with the PCOS, I did have a pelvic MRI, and they did see an endometrioma cyst the size of a lime on my left ovary, and inflammation all within that area that they could say it's possible that it's there. They can't say that it's there, but they can say it's possible that it was there. But beautiful news is that actually the lime, which was measured, size of a lime, which was measured summer of 2021, the last time I had it measured was 22. Last time I had it measured was August of 2023. And it went from being the size of a lime to the size of an almond in about a year. So I need to get it measured again. Maybe it's gone because I feel physically amazing. I don't have painful periods anymore, which is unbelievable to me, because when I was going through this whole journey that I just mentioned, I was in such agony that I could barely get out of bed when I had my period.
Imagine, yeah.
So yeah, so it's, again, long-winded answer, but it really is a journey that I've been on that has led me to where I am now, that I'm so passionate about, these health changes that I made, because it's helped me, but also a lot of other people.
That's amazing. The fact that you just mentioned that your periods were excruciating, that you had so
Mm-hmm.
much pain, and now they're pain-free. The fact that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that you had a cyst the size of a lime, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was like the size of an almond. And then the
Yeah.
fact that you mentioned that you reversed your PCOS symptoms in like 4 months. That's insane. I
Yeah.
mean, it's amazing, but it's so, us when we started our health journey,
Mm-hmm.
for me to think, in my case, I had gut issues. For me to think I could reverse
Yeah.
that, for me to think
Mm-hmm.
I could reverse my painful periods,
Yep.
was it was unattainable for me to even
Yeah.
think that. And here we are, living
I
proof.
know.
Yeah,
It's
and
so crazy.
it is. And do you think, in your experience, because you were diagnosed with PCOS, you were diagnosed with endometriosis, do you think that women with PCOS and endometriosis are being supported by the current medical system here in the US?
I wish I could say yes, but unfortunately, I don't think so. So when I got the diagnosis, they gave me I mean, it was all digital, so I had a my chart, and on my my chart, the recommendations for diet for PCOS were, I'm not even joking you, so don't have butter, switch to soybean oil, skinless, boneless chicken, no red meat,
Oh,
limit. No, I'm not even joking. And I read it and I'm like, and even then I was kind of more pescatarian. I just, when I was reading it, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. And so, between that and then it taking me 10 years to be diagnosed with endometriosis, between those two things alone, it's just, unfortunately, there's so much work that needs to be done in the healthcare system that it is an unfortunate reality. And I don't think that doctors are like out to get people. It's just there's a certain journey where it's just like sometimes the patient just needs to be their own advocate, because the doctor can only see so much, and based on the person's data, if they're not testing the right things, then of course they're not going to come to a conclusion to help them. And also, based on the journey that I went on 10 years, like, I should have heard the word endometriosis by the second or third OBGYN. The fact it took me so long to even hear the word and then get diagnosed, once I went through this whole journey, I did the research. On average, it takes 10 years to diagnose with endometriosis. That is not just my journey, that is the average amount of time that it takes. And so yeah, I mean, I wish that there was more out there, but I think that, people advocating on social media saying, be your own advocate if something's wrong, don't stop searching for answers. I think that's helping, and I think it's helping a lot of people.
that's that's important because many times we don't get the support that we need. I still
Yeah.
can't get over the fact that you were recommended to, not use
Soybean.
the soybean oil. And
Mhm.
I mean, for me, honestly, it's not that crazy because I do have family that studied medicine and are doctors. And personally, I'm not against, you know, allopathic medicine. I just think it
Exactly.
serves its time and place. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, it's just like you mentioned, it's a step. What I mean is like
Yeah.
nutrition is a step that is unfortunately skipped many times
Yeah.
in the preparation and the education and the academic of most doctors.
Mhm.
And they will get you know the steps like here's the nutrition for this patient, but it doesn't really go into their symptoms, or it doesn't go
Yeah.
into the lifestyle choices. And that's why I'm
Exactly.
pro homeopathic medicine. But I'm, like you mentioned, I don't think that doctors are necessarily out to get you.
Yeah.
Some are, they prefer the
Right. Right.
but most times it's just they're not taught nutrition, right? They're not taught how
Exactly.
nutrition affects your body and your health. um
1,000%. Actually, interesting story. So one of my dear friends, they did a mission trip with her in 2012 when we were both in college, and she was studying to be a surgeon. I mean, the girl, Kristen, shout out if you're listening. She amazes me. And when she was in school, like we reconnected a few years after graduation, and she showed me a picture of one page in a book that she learned about endometriosis, and that was it. And half of the information was also already archaic, that they had already debunked some of these myths, and more. And these are all legitimate research studies that have basically, like progression. That's all she learned. And she wasn't studying to be an OBGYN or anything, but she was studying to be a surgeon. She is a surgeon now. That it just like, I think it's a matter of education too, and a matter of being open to learning new things and seeing that, as research progresses, it's okay to have an open mind and, have your opinion changed on something. So I do think that I'm certainly absolutely not against modern medicine, in a sense that, if I hadn't had my endometriosis surgery in 2015, I don't know where I would be. I mean, at the same time, like, I wasn't eating the way I am now, but because of the severity of my case, I'm forever grateful for it. So, but I also do think that a holistic approach to, trying the natural first and see what works I love doing that first, because I've seen tremendous results from it. And also the more I learn about the system, it's just so fascinating.
Yeah. Speaking of having your mind changed,
Mhm.
I'm super interested in you diving a little bit into the fact that you were vegan and
Yeah.
then why you went that route and then pescatarian
Mhm.
and then now you're all about ancestral eating and
Yeah.
red meat and butter.
Yes.
So,
Okay. So
yeah.
this is so fun because I actually stopped eating red meat at a very young age. So probably I would say it might have been eighth grade, like super young. Um, and the reason why I stopped was because I just felt like I wasn't digesting it well. It would make me bloated. And again, like I didn't know I had endometriosis. It was something that I experienced very young. But I would still eat. I was so crazy because I'd eat the disgusting like Purdue chicken. I'd eat French fries. I would eat like, all those things, but I just wouldn't eat red meat because I was like, well, I can't really chew it. I can't digest it. And it's probably bad for me anyway, so I'm not going to do it. Same thing with milk. So I started drinking non-dairy milks when I was in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
And it was not my parents' doing. It was a personal choice. I told my parents, I'm like, I cannot drink. And I was a coffee drinker from a young age. So I cannot drink my coffee with this milk. It makes my stomach hurt so bad. Let me try all of these other alternative options. And so fast forward, as my endometriosis symptoms progressed, I couldn't consume the dairy. I couldn't consume the meat. I did develop a chicken allergy in my teens, which was very strange. So I just eliminated meat and dairy products from my life. Like that was it. Um, it was not an approach to save the animals because I was not blind to the fact that even veganism, like tilling the land and so forth, that does also kill animals. So no matter what we do, like it's a sad reality, but that's it. Um, so I was vegan because literally my health journey put me through so much that I'm just eliminating everything and seeing what sticks. Um, when I was in Ireland, I I was studying abroad in Ireland in 2011. So at this time, just before Ireland, I was vegan. And I lived in Ireland for a couple of months. And then my whole family came out, like my extended family. There's a bunch of us, probably like 100 and something. And my grandfather was turning 90 and he wanted to climb this mountain called Patrick in Ireland on his 90th birthday. It was something that God put on his heart that he wanted to do. So after I was done with my semester in Ireland, I met everyone in, near Patrick, and we climbed the mountain and I was fit and I was vegan, but I was fit. I was exercising. I got to the top of the mountain, one of the first people to get to the top, and I couldn't be up there any longer to wait for my grandfather to summit the mountain. And I had to come down. And the reason why I couldn't wait was because my body was shaking so much that I look back on it now and I was like, it was definitely my diet that everything was off just because the altitude, the cold, like everything. And so when I came back down from the mountain, I waited at the bottom for, everyone to finish and come down. And I realized that at that time I needed to make adjustments again. So that's when I started to introduce fish back into my diet because I didn't think I still thought I can't digest red meat, but I have to have some sort of, I mean, fish isn't an animal, but you know what I mean, into my diet again. So actually on that trip, I started eating salmon again. And after the, the mountain situation. So then fast forward a couple years after that, my husband and I had lived in Florida now. My husband and I did a whole day trip in the Everglades and I couldn't find a place to eat because everything was just meat. And so we ended up stopping at a hotel on the border of the Everglades because it was the first place that we could get food and I was starving. And it was a steakhouse. And he orders a steak and I order some like fish plate. I took one look at the steak and I was like, that looks so good. And and this is now post endometriosis surgery. So I'm like, you know what? Let's try this again. So I took one bite of the steak and that was it. I mean, I was like, God, this is it. I can do this now. Like, and so it took some time because when you don't have, meat for a significant period of time, your body loses the enzymes to really digest it. So you have to introduce it very slowly. Now, at this point, I was 13 years without red meat. So that's a very long time. And, so I had to be very careful. So, a couple of bites at a time and, fairly frequently. And I would take digestive enzymes to help me digest it. But within 6 months, I was eating steaks again. And, but I wasn't eating them in excess because still I was, like, well, red meat, it's probably not that good for you to eat it so frequently. So, I'll eat fish most of the time and then I'll just have red meat like every once in a while. But as this health journey progressed, and the more I've learned, and I had that reflection about my grandmother and how she really prioritized quality meat, I was like, maybe there really is something to this. And so as I went on this journey and, I was like addicted to oat milk. So I was cut out seed oils entirely, but I was like, oh, I can't have milk. I can't have milk. So I'll drink my oat milk. That will be my moderation. And then that's it. And I realized that the oat milk was actually a very big problem. I cut out all of the seed oils. And when I wasn't having oat milk, I felt great. But when I was, I was super bloated. I was miserable. I'd get the head fog. Like all of these things would happen to me with my oat milk latte. And so once I decided to quit that, I didn't realize how much of a sweet tooth I had because of how highly glycemic oat milk is. And I actually, once I cut it out, was when I started noticing very fast and significant improvements in my health between, going 17 years without dairy products, now completely, going the opposite end of the spectrum, drinking raw milk from my local farm. And, I was addicted to Oatly. Like, even some of my family members will be like, it's still so weird to see you eating red meat every day. Like, they just like can't wrap their head around it because for so long I was without meat and dairy products. I was the opposite end of the spectrum. But because of how much it really improved my health and even my husband's health, it's like we can't even go back. Like we look at pictures of ourselves even, and we looked inflamed. And at the time, we didn't think we looked inflamed. But when we compare photos to us now, we have a glow in our skin. We look younger than we did when we were eating, the way that we used to eat. We feel better. We don't have chronic stomach issues. And I know gut issues are a big thing that you talk about too. Like I suffered with gut issues. I mean, my stomach hurt like every day of my life. And I thought that was just supposed to be the norm. So, it's been quite a journey, but, going from vegan to pescatarian to now, like, I don't say I'm carnivore because I'm not carnivore. Carnivore people, they don't eat, and there's no, whatever works for anyone, but they typically won't eat fruit, or honey or dairy. Those are a big part of my life. So it's more, I call it more ancestral because the way I look at it, and this is, whatever, it's personal preference. But if Jesus ate it, then I can have it. And Jesus was eating bread. So as long as I'm having fermented organic, grain, then, and listen, some people can't digest grain, I get it, but I can. So I'm not cutting it out.
No, that's really good because
Yeah.
it's when you look at the differences, right,
Mhm.
in your diet before introducing
Mhm.
red meat and before introducing dairy again, you felt bloated and you had low energy, but in
Mhm.
a way you were trying to do something about your health. So
Yeah.
personally, I also did go vegan for a short amount of time,
Mhm.
not that long, but I went vegan for a short amount of time because my stomach, I had gut issues.
Yeah.
I battled with gut issues for 10 years. And so
Wow.
that's I cut out red meat because I couldn't digest red meat. And then
Mhm.
I was also kind of thinking maybe it's bad for the environment.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of went that route a little bit, and
Yeah.
then kind of realized, and I just think I got some logic, in
Yeah.
me. I said, all these pesticides are not helping animals either. So
Hmm.
pick your battle, right?
Right.
You have to pick your battle. And for me, when I went vegan, it was because I couldn't digest red meat.
Yep.
And I realized that my gut was so weak that I did not have like you mentioned, the enzymes to
Yep.
digest red meat. And so when I slowly started reintroducing it, it was very slow, but
Yeah.
it's progressing. I have never felt stronger, more energized, and my blood work has come back amazing. And like you mentioned,
Yeah.
like my skin, I don't look pale anymore, even though I'm
Yeah.
brown, I was
Yeah.
looking gray. So
Yeah.
definitely what we eat has a lot to do with our overall health. And sometimes I don't blame people. I think we've all gone vegan at some point,
Hmm.
trying to just cut out what's not working. But
Yeah.
personally, I need the red meat, I need the dairy, I need the butter, and especially
Exactly.
as women, we need those good fats.
Yeah.
So it's something to just keep in mind, for the ladies watching this that are experiencing PCOS, are experiencing endometriosis, and maybe you think that cutting out the red meat might help. Obviously, ultra processed red
Mhm.
meat is not good. It's not the best,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
but I think that giving your body the chance to kind of start getting used to all those, you know, nutrients that come with red
Mhm.
meat is something to give a shot, because we have Megan here who, was able to reverse those symptoms, and now she eats red meat. And I think that's fascinating.
Thank
Um
you.
yeah, I did want to ask, because you are in real estate, and your whole, I guess, personality online is about dressing nicely, living the healthy lifestyle.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts regarding looking glam, being feminine, and being healthy? Is that something that women have to give up? Because it's very easy to go online and think, oh, I have to look a certain way to be healthy.
I absolutely love this question because it is something that I definitely talk about often. So, as I started as embarking on this journey of, healthful living, it kind of like my my brand online, I guess you want to call it a brand, it's just me. It really started out where I was just publicly sharing, like, I'm going through some health stuff right now. Here are the things that I'm trying. And I didn't realize how many people were going to respond to me embarking on this journey of, non-toxic and clean living. So when this happened, I started following a bunch of accounts that talked about these things. And I'm just going to use the word ancestral wellness as like an umbrella term because there are, subcategories underneath the ancestral wellness realm. But I felt like it was very hard to resonate with any of the people that I was watching online. Like I would see, and I'm Christian Catholic wife. I love my husband. We try to live as biblically as we can. We go to mass on Sunday, but like I don't resonate with the extreme, trad wife brand online where you don't work, because I love to work. I love to achieve things. So I just felt like I didn't resonate there. And then I also felt like it didn't resonate with, different subgroups where they just, I just don't feel like we're the same, and that's okay. I mean, it's the beautiful thing of, we all have a mutual goal to share health and wellness. And then also, I'm not doing CrossFit. It's just not something I've done it before. It's very hard, and so much respect to the people that do, but like a lot of the people living similarly to the way we do, I felt like there was no place where I belonged. So I felt like something that I feel like it's a gift from God that I'm just going to be who I am. And if you don't resonate with that, that's okay. I'm okay with it. Take it or leave it. And so when I started sharing about the health and wellness, I noticed a lot of questions about, do I have to look like this? Do I have to give up makeup? Do I have to stop doing my hair? Do I have to, wear a dress every day? Am I not allowed to wear pants? And I just couldn't believe that these questions were coming through to my messages. I can't wear colors. I have to just go thrifting. And I'm like, I, I couldn't believe it. And so that's when I started advocating about you can love makeup. You can love, putting yourself together, brushing your hair. Listen, I love clean makeup, right? Um, Clean skincare, all of the things. But you don't like, you don't have to give up, you don't have to give up who you are because someone online is different from you. That's kind of where I'm going with this, is that, if you're taking care of the body that God gave you with what you put in your body and on your body, and you're a person like me who loves to brush her hair, do her hair, loves to do makeup, there is nothing wrong with that, even down to the clothing too. It's, we've talked about this, pretty frequently. Yes, there are some synthetic clothing that's not good for us, right? So we do the best we can to find, clothing of the colors that we look good in, and we can still look fashionable and presentable that are made with natural fibers. Like, we can do these things. So I noticed a need for me to talk about this because of the questions that were coming in through my messages that I was so blown away by, even down to the fact of, is it sinful if I work? And I'm just like, is it sinful if you work? If God has a plan for you and the plan takes you to drive revenue, how dare you defy his plan for you? And that's kind of like, where it's still a journey that I'm on social media too, because, not everyone talking about ancestral health and wellness is, into hair and makeup, and that's okay. Just like I'm not into some of the things that they're into, and that's totally fine, but we all have a mutual goal of sharing our health journey. And so I guess, to make a very long story short, you don't have to give up who you are, your passions, because, because someone else is different from you online. Like, there are clean options that are out there that are great.
Yes, no, I totally agree. Personally, on my journey to
Mhm.
better health and just looking at things from a natural approach, I've always been into makeup and dressing up and just feeling good and wearing my jewelry and my sunglasses and,
Yeah.
in my own style, as we all have. And recently, I even started discovering what colors look best on me and my
Mhm.
body type and all these things. And I remember that it was at the same time that I was kind of experiencing this
Yeah.
whole awakening to
Yes.
natural health. And I remember not being able to resonate with so many creators
Mhm.
fashion wise
Yeah.
because holistically speaking and nutrition
Yep.
wise and healthy habits, yes, but I couldn't resonate with so many based on the clothing just
Mhm.
because I felt, okay, do I have to sacrifice feeling and looking feminine?
Right.
You know, do I have to sacrifice that before choosing to live a better life holistically? And then all that stress was just
Yeah.
not doing me any good.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I came to the point of thinking, I'm doing the best that I can, and what is inside my body is like what I'm feeding myself is good,
Mhm.
and the products that I'm using are clean, and the things that I'm doing are clean. How can I look presentable and stay true to my style and also be healthy? And so
I
I'm
love it.
finally, figuring that out. But you talk about that a lot, and I love it because I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I just am not in that whole like wilderness
Girl,
jungle aesthetic. It's not
you're
me.
speaking my language, okay? Like, look at us right now. We like fashion, and that's great, I mean, it's there's nothing wrong with, expressing yourself through hair, makeup, clothing, and doing it in a clean way where you're still respecting the gift of the body that God gave you. And that I love talking about that because I didn't realize how much of a need to talk about it there was.
Yes.
But here we are, and I'm so glad you asked this question, and I'm so glad we're talking about it because there's a lot of people who follow, us or similar accounts that, they feel like they need to see these things talked about so that they don't feel alone.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. And especially the whole Christian aspect, right? Like
Mhm.
many of these pages, I wasn't resonating with them
Yeah.
faith wise, because I do believe that our bodies are a gift um, from God. He created us. It's not
Yeah.
the universe. I serve God and I
Exactly.
serve the creator of the world. And so
Yeah,
um, I love that we're having this conversation.
me
Um,
too.
I wanted to kind of wrap it up a little bit with, looking back at your health journey. If you, Meghan, were looking, at yourself when you were in your 20s, or if you have someone close to you that's in their 20s, or someone that was just diagnosed with
Mhm.
PCOS or endometriosis, no matter their age, what
Mhm.
is something that you would tell them? Like, what is some advice you would give them?
So I actually do tell everyone that comes to me in my messages, phone calls, whatever the case may be, comments, I always tell people to be your own advocate because you know your body better than anyone else. And if someone is telling you, oh, you're fine, oh, that's normal, but something doesn't sit well with you and you know something's not normal, don't stop until you get the answers that you need. Because if I didn't do that, I may honestly, I may still be in such crippling pain that I might have been on a morphine pump because I was going in that direction. I'm not even joking you. My surgeon literally said that people with your case they're heading towards morphine pumps just to deal with their pain if they're not getting the treatment or eating the way that they need to be eating. So, number one piece of advice, like if something's not sitting well with you and you know something's wrong, be your own advocate and don't stop until you get answers. It's the best way to handle it. And it sometimes can feel like a long journey, but don't give up. Do not give up. Seriously.
Yes, I get so many women
Mhm.
DMing me telling me, "Oh, I
Yeah.
was just diagnosed with PCOS and
Mhm.
my doctor prescribed me birth control." The fact that you're saying that
Yeah.
you know, it resonates.
Thank you. Yeah. And just to quickly share, out of complete desperation, when I was in college, I actually did try birth control for 5 months to fix my periods because I didn't know, but I knew that it was not good for me. But I was in such desperation that I was like, let me try it. I was worse off for it rather than just continuing to search for answers because I wanted to give up. And then once I got off of it, which was again, it was very brief, I couldn't believe one, how long it took me to bounce back. But two, when I was on that journey, I ended up finding out about endometriosis a couple of years later.
Mhm.
So, one, if you can help it, please God, don't do birth control. We don't like it. It's not good for you. But that's, conversation for another day. But two, just stay advocating for yourself. It's super important. So I'm so glad, Natalie. Seriously, you're amazing.
I know,
I'm so
thank
glad we're
you for
talking about these things.
yes, no, and thank you for agreeing to have this conversation. One final thing about birth control, and I know it's a conversation for another time, and if we
Yeah.
can have that, then we can
Yes.
definitely schedule another
Yes. A hundred
another
percent.
episode. Yes, but I think that many times women don't know that
Mhm.
number one, birth control is not the only option to
Right.
reversing your symptoms, to balancing your
Mhm.
hormones, and to even planning your family, because
Yeah.
we believe that children are a gift from God and they're a
Yeah.
blessing and they're not a burden. But
Right.
sometimes it doesn't make sense for
Right.
certain families to just pop babies,
Right. A
one
hundred
after the
percent.
other. They're not told that it takes a while. It takes a long
Mhm.
time for your body to actually come back to its original state pre-birth control. Um,
Absolutely.
like many women don't know that once you get on birth control
Mhm.
and then you get off, it could take 3 months, it could take 5 years
Yep.
for your body to come back to its original state pre-birth.
Mhm. Well,
So,
it's actually just to piggyback off of that real quick, and I'm so glad that you mentioned this, but another thing that people don't talk about with the birth control pill, which is used very vastly as a band-aid to mask a lot of problems, besides the actual intent of birth control, which we
yes.
know there's other options out there. But it actually changes your like who you're attracted to. It changes the pheromones that your body recognizes as a potential mate. Like it is that damaging. I mean, there's a whole, if you open up and read the inserts are a giant. Have you seen the inserts?
Yes. Yes,
They're
there
a
are on
giant piece.
there are TikToks, since
Yes,
I'm, like Gen Z, there are TikToks
yes,
of girls like wrapping their
wearing them as like a dress.
yes,
And I'm
because
just like,
how long?
people don't read the inserts. It's so crazy. And Washington Post just came out with an article about it, which again, story for another day, and maybe, we do a part two, but it it is, unfortunately, it's just given out like candy, whereas, it's just there's other options.
Yes, no, you're totally right. Well, Megan, thank you so much
Thank
for joining
you.
me in this conversation. I am so happy that number one, God has been able to, heal you and also give you the wisdom to take the necessary steps and the practical steps. And I do pray that this interview slash episode slash conversation blesses many women to be able to recognize, hey, like I'm not crazy for
Mhm.
thinking that there's another option. I'm not crazy for thinking that something's wrong with my body, even though my doctor's telling me that it's fine. So
Yeah.
I'm just really
Thank you,
happy that you're able
Natalie.
to come along.
I know you found this conversation so helpful. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Natalie Julianne, and go ahead and follow Meghan on her socials at Meghan Connolly. Remember, ladies, that PCOS is reversible and you can manage your endometriosis and heal it naturally.